How's it going there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday night. It is the Earthmaster out here about 7:11 p.m. California time, here local time in California, August 7th, 2024. Got another 4.7 earthquake coming in to the California area here just outside of Bakersfield, where this 5.2 struck here last night. I'm telling you, things are getting a little bit on the elevated side out here. We're approaching 300, well, we're over 350 earthquakes since last night's 5.2. Now this 4.7 just coming in here about 2 minutes ago. In fact, it hasn't even showed up here on the live seismograph stations. Whoa, and just like that, they downgraded it to a 4.3. Wow, they've been dropping these magnitudes as soon as they come in here. But originally this coming in as a 4.3. Either way, that's still a strong aftershock here, and that would make that the third or second strongest aftershock. Of course, this 4.6 coming in 1 minute following the 5.2 from yesterday. So we're getting definitely a handful of fours in there now, quite a few threes, and of course hundreds of twos. Well, there's literally hundreds of twos out here and some ones in there as well. Nothing really below that. That's a little odd. I guarantee you there's some earthquake activity below the 1.0 threshold, but they're not showing it. Got to remember, for every three-pointer in the aftershock sequence, there's going to be a series of twos, series of ones, and series of microquakes. There's probably hundreds more microquakes to add on to the list here. We're probably up around 500 earthquakes or so if you were to include the earthquakes below 1.0. But they're not showing them. They're not up there on the USGS map. So we'll go with what they have. And that's about 349. Did that just drop? Hold on a second here. Looks like another 3.3 coming in following this 4-pointer. So let's see what we got going on here, folks. A lot happening. There's the 4-pointer. 4.3 showing up there on the Bakersfield station, Cal State Bakersfield. That's going to be the station right here. Fairly well defined. Make sure the bells are off. And also, it looks like that's showing up down in Southern California, Northern California as well. The Petrolia station now just picking up the P wave, the primary wave. So I think some of these quakes are a little bit bigger than what they're stating. Let's look at some of these. Well, it's still at an automatic status. So the computer itself was programmed to drop it immediately from a 4.7 to a 4.3 due to, let's see, why did they do that? They went with a this station right here. It's got about 18 stations with an error level of about 0.25, low one. But I see some fives in there. I see a 5.1, 5.2, lots of fives in here. Upper fours, and I've seen a lot more fives than I would expect in that station for it to get downgraded to a 4.3 like this. So this could get revised. Either way, we're getting a series of earthquakes coming in right now, 4.3, 3.3, all coming into this area where there's always a potential here, folks. And I said it last night that we could see something larger. Now, I need to point out something that a lot of people are coming up with in the comments here, that, well, all these aftershocks are a good sign. That means it's releasing strain. Well, think about this. What is creating that strain in the first place? Pressure, right? So the further earthquake activity that you have in aftershock sequences, the further push, further pressurization that's going on here. We've seen it back in 2019. Okay, I'm not going to cover that too much, but let me go over here. Remember the 2019 series of earthquakes there around Ridgecrest? There was a 6.4 on the 4th of July, 2019. Guess what happened following hundreds of earthquakes like we're seeing right now? A bigger quake happened the next day. That's when we seen that 7-pointer come in. 7.1. So there's always a likelihood here that we could see something much larger in the process here. It's just we haven't seen it yet. So to say that this is just relieving pressure and that there's no sign of there's not going to be a bigger quake is false. It's relieving strain to a point, but that's just because there's further pressurization in this area. We wouldn't have earthquakes without pressurization. So that's what's going on here. There's still a lot of activity stirring up here outside of Bakersfield, and I don't think we're over yet. I got to be on guard. Looks like they just upgraded it to a 4.4 now from a 4.3. I still think it's a little bit larger than that. The automatic status here is upgrading it, kind of messing with the numbers a little bit, sorting out the response from all the seismograph stations and computing it and putting a number out here for the public to see. But it has not been reviewed by a seismologist yet. But looking at this signature here, that's a pretty decent one on Cal State Bakersfield station, but also there in Northern California it showed up, that little P wave. Also Barrett, California. Where's my Mount St. Helens station here? Is that gone? Oh, right here. There it is. There's a little spike of an earthquake there anyway. So let me see if that showed up there. I know last night, if it did, it's barely maybe right here. But last night when we seen that 5.2, that showed up on the Mount St. Helens station way up in Washington. Kind of odd, right? I've been noticing a lot of downgrading going on here with these quakes here recently. I don't know why, but they are. So we got to see what these guys are going to do with this magnitude. 4.4. Still underneath automatic status. It's a little odd. Nobody's reviewed it yet, and it's kind of a big deal. Making national and world news right now from a 5.2 earthquake. Crazy, right? Well, there's always, like I say, and what's really weird is that they haven't, and I can't figure it out either, is what fault system this occurred on. It's off of the San Andreas Fault, north of the X marks the spot here. This is where they believe the San Andreas Fault here could zip down into the southern branch and produce an 8.1. I think this has something to do with it. Here's a Garlock Fault shear zone that's capable of producing some large quakes in itself. That's going to be this red line right here. There's a White Wolf Fault system and also the Wheeler Ridge Fault, which is a little bit further over here. But it's not on these faults, which is really weird. Even Dr. Lucy Jones there is unsure of, or she stated that there's that this activity is occurring on a previously undiscovered fault. But I think in general it has to do with all the built-up strain here on the plate boundary, the San Andreas Fault. I mean, something that's been pressurized, been building up steam for over 300 years. That's how long it's been since we've seen a complete rupture here of the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. It's capable of producing 8.1. So that's the only thing I can think of here, is that's creating some incredible strain here, that it's fracturing areas further up north of the area of these other faults. Again, I'm kind of waiting for the professional story on this. I'm sure it might take them a little while to figure out which fault system this occurred on, but it's an unknown area, and I think this region here is getting ready for something bigger. Think about it. The Pacific Plate here on the west side of this line here, on the left side, west side, is moving off to the northwest in a general fashion, right? If you can picture in your mind this plate moving to the northwest here against the North American plate here on the east, on the right side of the screen. And as these two plates interact, strain builds up here right at this interchange here with that shear zone. And the creeping segment up here, they call this the creeping section because there's not a whole, I mean, it builds up strain, and every 20 years or so it gets a 6-pointer down there around Parkfield. But there's always earthquakes here on this area of the creeping segment because it doesn't lock up a lot. The locked areas take place right here southward, and then of course up north here around the northern segment of the San Andreas Fault. Well, this area here is more dangerous than I think than people believe. And I think what we're seeing here right now is the extreme pressure in general out here against the plate boundary. So that's a time in itself here to be prepared for something bigger out here. It's not fear-mongering, it's science, you know. You can't say to the scientists and geologists, oh, you're just fear-mongering about an 8.1, you know. You just want people to panic or live in fear. No, not really. We want people to be prepared and not live in fear because it's coming. There's a big earthquake coming for Southern California. It's going to be an 8.1. That's what they claim it's going to be. Look it up. I've covered this a lot. 8.1 here on the San Andreas Fault. Whether it's going to happen now, tonight, tomorrow, Maybe I don't see it happening in 100 years. It's well overdue. I don't see this lasting another 100 years, 50 years, 20 years. I think it's going to happen well before then. And we could be seeing right now the extreme pressure in general from the strain that's up here against the plate boundary in this locked area happening just north here off of it. These are just collateral damage type of quakes, so to speak, in terms of what could be potentially really coming out here across Southern California. So be prepared. There's that little 4-pointer from last night, just after midnight, still underneath automatic status. That's a little weird. Nobody's reviewed it. Does anybody care? Because that's kind of an odd quake. If we're getting some migration further northward, or maybe migration away from the area, we definitely need to know. So I'm not for sure why they haven't covered that, why they haven't looked into it. Let's check out the 4.4 right now again. Still underneath automatic status. Look at that. What is going on? See? The data below has not been reviewed by a scientist or seismologist. So magnitude 4.39. The computer is going with this station right here, 6 stations with no error. But where's the stations at? No station details contributed. So is it going back to just maybe a defaulted level? Let me know, guys, if you felt this earthquake and how it felt in relation to last night's earthquake. Remember, there was 2 earthquakes last night simultaneously, with that 5.2 and then the 4.7 1 minute later. But that's a decent sized signature right there. Goodness. I think it's bigger than a 4.4. Just looking at these graphs out here. Let me know. Some reports coming in right now around the area, Bakersfield area, picking up on some of the earthquakes. You know, you definitely want to be prepared. I don't think that, I mean, there's always a possibility here of seeing something larger in this area, but I do think here that we may see something larger regionally as a whole, just because of this activity that's stirring up out here. Like I say, they got 2 major plate boundaries stuck, locked and loaded. And I'm not the only one that says locked and loaded out here. There's a lot of people, scientists, geologists, that state that. And that's basically what is happening out here. You know, this area is so built up in steam. Not steam literally, but energy and pressurization here for hundreds of years, that when it goes, you know, these may be little signs of it. Just off the plate boundary here, north of this little interchange here, where they say this could unzip. So 4.4, 3.3. Let me check and see if this has been reviewed or not. Automatic status. What's going on? It's not Sunday, right? It's Wednesday evening. You think somebody would be covering this? Kind of weird. Dr. Lucy Jones here, of course, puts out the... I was reading a lot of the comments here recently on her posts there on the social media site X, formerly Twitter. Nothing new from Dr. Lucy Jones, right? Seismologist, founder of a bunch of stuff, and you know, she's the face of the media, or the face that people want to see when there's an earthquake there in California. She was just on the news, she was on the news here, many stations, giving an update on this, and she claimed that there's another earthquake coming in here. Another 3.0 coming in. States that at least one wording here, that it's near the White Wolf Fault that produced the 7.5 in 1952. That's just a key indicator of strain alone near the San Andreas Fault, that big quake back in 1952. So 8.1, I think there's a lot of stress building up out there. But it does not appear to be on that fault. So I'm kind of curious to see what she thinks after studying it, which fault system this is going to be on. I don't think it's going to be on any known fault, that's for sure. I think in general it's just a sign of some mega quake activity about ready to happen out here. Not fear-mongering, folks. It's just a good time to be prepared. It's just north here where that interchange is between this area. So keep an eye on that. There's our 3.0 coming in right now. I got my app on my phone, bringing in a lot of earthquakes there. I'm just kind of keeping notified. Another 2.0 coming in. So things are kicking up right now. They're not going down, folks. They're increasing. And there's a series of waves out here in terms of the level of earthquakes. Another 4.4. 300. What do we got here for total tally right now? 353. Since 9:09 local time here, so we're almost coming in on 24 hours. Now, remember the Ridgecrest area? The activity back over there, what do they do with that? I got so many USGS windows open here. But the Ridgecrest area, that's seen the earthquake activity on the 4th and 5th of July back in 2019. You remember I was just talking about it? There was about a 30-hour time span between the 6.4 and then the 7.1 that struck the following day. So 30 hours later, we've seen the bigger quake. So, and they were calling all of these hundreds of little quakes aftershocks following the 6.4. So we don't really know. This could be a similar sequence here, just literally left here of the Ridgecrest area, north of the Garlock Fault shear zone. Same location here, but just further west and closer to the plate boundary. Some serious stuff here, folks, and definitely need to be on guard. And I'm watching it. I'm hoping for the best, but also at the same time, the worst is coming. There's no doubt. That's the facts. That's not sugarcoating it. I'm not going to drop it down and to say that, no worry, folks, there's no signs of a big earthquake coming here. Well, there's definitely coming an earthquake here, a big one day. Again, it could be tonight, could be tomorrow. The best thing to do is be prepared, because an 8.1 is going to blow a 5.3, 5.2 earthquake out of the water in terms of damage out here. So let's look up north here a little bit while we give that time to update. A little bit of activity around the Bay Area as well. There's numerous faults up here that are well overdue, obviously. 1.5 and a 2.1 coming in right now. The rest of California looks pretty quiet. Look at this little earthquake right smack dab on the Cascadia subduction zone from earlier this morning. 1.8. That's up there around the locked area. Now that's a mega thrust area. That's a scary word to use, right? The Cascadia mega thrust earthquake is going to take place. That's bigger than an 8-pointer. That's going to be a 9-pointer or higher. I know, a lot of doom and gloom out here, right? Well, as I've been saying, we've been living in times of ease. Nice and easy, right? Smooth as she goes. Got our infrastructure all built up, our technology. Everything is hunky-dory. But it hasn't always been that way, and it won't. We live on a major plate boundary, and that's a major subduction zone up here. All right, so let me back out of here and see what we got. Well, a little bit of activity down in South America area, 5.1 Bolivia. Fairly deep, 123 kilometers. I don't see anything over here that would relieve strain out here across the Eastern Pacific. A lot of times, and we've seen it. There was an article put out following that 9-pointer out here. You guys remember back in 2011? Was it 2011? The big 9-pointer, and that was the last time we've seen a 9-pointer. That's a little rare. We should be seeing a 9-pointer at least once every 10 years, I think, and it's been over that. And we haven't even seen an 8-pointer this year. Our last 8-pointer was 2021, so it's been 3 years, and we should at least see one 8-pointer out here across the globe once a year, or once every other year. And it's been 3 years now. Goodness. All right, so we're going to watch this, monitor it. I just wanted to do a quick little recap here on the earthquake activity. It's still coming in here, folks. And the closest station I have is going to be the Cal State Bakersfield station there. And you can see continuous earthquake activity coming in following the activity that I just discussed here, the 4.4. Up to 354 earthquakes out here. And looks like they're on the increase right now in the last hour. So Let us know if you felt this 4.4. I want to know how strong it felt in relation to the 5.2 last night, because these guys, oh, it has been reviewed. Finally has been reviewed here by the USGS. But they're still going with stations that have not contributed anything. 6 stations of nothing to come up with a magnitude of 4.3, even though this is a fairly low error rate right here at 0.25, and there's about 18 stations in here. A couple of these reporting a 5, upper 4s, lots of 5s in here. So I think, I'm not in charge of this, but I think it was a little bit stronger than a 4 point, what they come up with, a 4.4. So let me know what it felt like compared to the earthquake last night, or earthquake activity in general. Did this one have a pretty good jolt? Let me know. Lamont area has been getting quite a bit of reports coming in from that area. I appreciate all the comments and whatnot. So let me know in this update video or in the comment section of the live stream. And we'll be back here a little bit later on. It's still somewhat early. It's only about 7:30 here, California time. So we'll do a complete coverage update on this here in a couple hours, folks. We'll check back then.